Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Adrian Tobey. Adrian is CEO of an organization called The Groundhog, and it is an agency or organization, has software that helps people generate sales funnels, manage and grow their email lists, and scale their businesses. So he has also, at his very young age, created two other companies. And one is, they're both in software, FormLift, and what was the other one?
Mailhawk.
Adrian. Mailhawk. Okay. So both in the area of the digital marketing scene. But Adrian, it's interesting to me how you've come into this, because I think your journey into what you're doing speaks to the challenges of what people experience in the digital marketing space. So if you could just share a little bit about that, it would be helpful.
Absolutely. I'd be glad to. Before I get started, I just want to say thank you, Lois, for having me on the show and taking the time. And hopefully what I have to share today is beneficial to your audience.
Welcome. It's great to have you.
So for me, it started almost 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now, since we're nearing the end of 2020. I got my start right while I was in university. I went to the U of T, University of Toronto, for computer science. And while I was doing that, I did school part-time, and I was working within my parents' digital marketing agency here in Toronto, Canada, full-time. I would do U of T at night, and then 9 to 5, I would be in the office, building websites, web design, copywriting, implementing sales funnels, and all of that fun digital marketing stuff. Typically, what we would do is we'd go to a lot of trade shows, we'd go to a lot of business conferences in our local area. My dad usually got the keynote for a lot of these different places. And the strategy is we would go up on stage, or he would go up on stage rather, and he would essentially show all of the tools and strategies that a small business needed to implement in order to develop their digital lead generation channel. So Google PPC or Facebook PPC, pay-per-click advertising, the Google business listing, the website, the lead generation form, the follow-up, the review follow-up, all of these different things that essentially are needed by small businesses in order to generate consistent growth through their digital channel. And by the end of the presentation, which usually lasted 45 minutes to an hour, all of the business owners would be in a form of information overload and completely unaware of the next steps. The only next step that we gave them was go to the back of the room, because guess what? All of this thing is totally doable by us for you as a done-for-you service. And that's what we do, because a lot of this stuff was just outside of the realm of the typical small business owner. So after they go to the back of the room, we'd collect the order form, and we'd start working on their project. I would generally be in charge of doing a lot of the website design, building websites mostly with WordPress. And then we would build marketing automation and CRM systems based on Infusionsoft, which is kind of like the OG marketing automation tool for small businesses. Maybe it's not the most popular anymore, but at the time when we were, or the agency that I worked with was the largest certified partner agency in Canada at the time, it was kind of like the de facto choice. And then we have more like HubSpot and ActiveCampaign and all of these new players as well. So where am I going with this? Some of the problems that we experienced with this kind of typical way of doing things was, once we completed this small business project, right? We built the website, we built the funnels, we built the campaigns, we built all of the things. We essentially did a handoff where we'd get on a call and we'd communicate. We'd be like, here are all the things that we did. It's all nice and shiny and it works, right? And then we'd hand it off, and then they'd go off on their merry way. And then 1, 2, 3 months later, they'd come back and be like, nothing's working. It's like my business isn't going up. I have all these bills. So, what's the deal? And, the fact of the matter is, a small business owner needs to be involved because like these things that we set up, these digital channels that we develop are or need to be constantly evolving in order to meet shifts in customer relationships, in order to meet shifts in technology, in compliance, in terms and conditions, and all of these things and all of these different areas are constantly changing. Like things that were made yesterday are obsolete by tomorrow. So they come to us months later and they're like, well, nothing's working anymore. Well, it's because you didn't keep up with it. It's because you didn't know, but it's because they didn't have the proper training. They don't have the skills. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the education. And the software and the tools that we use to install and build all these standards certainly aren't providing the education that they need in order to make it. And our agency certainly wasn't the most inexpensive one. The average cost of a project, if you worked with us, was mid 5 figures. So it was a hefty expense for them to continue to pay us. And that's really when I started my journey into what kind of software could we build in order to alleviate the pain for small businesses investing a significant amount of money to have all of these things built, and then all of a sudden not be able to use them anymore because they're obsolesced by time and all of these different changes. What software, what solutions could we build in order to make it so that the small business owner has the access and, most importantly, the wherewithal to actually be able to maintain, view reports, view stats, make optimizations, change copy, and all of these different things. And that's really when it started. That process, that thinking process, is when my software building career started.
Got it. So, boy, that resonates with me because I remember when I first started in this digital world, I remember going to a conference, learning what needed to be done. And I go around and I go, you mean I have to do that too? And then I go, that too. And it is overwhelming at first until you understand it, see where it fits, and develop a rhythm. And the problem I think many small businesses have is that they have so many things on their plate that to take on the digital marketing without knowing the process or understanding it is overwhelming.
I have a friend, Chris Badgett, who is the CEO of another WordPress plugin called Lifter LMS, and he always says that the entrepreneur is aware of many hats, and I think that's very synonymous with what you just described. Is we wear our HR hat and we wear our CMO hat and our CEO hat and our CPA hat and all of these different hats that, adding an additional hat, if all of a sudden I need to be able to build a marketing channel online is almost too much to ask.
Yeah. So describe a little bit about your groundhog tool and what it really does for people, because people are looking for solutions and ways to be able to put their arms around this whole process of digital marketing so they can do it effectively.
Absolutely. So the main qualifications when we were conceptualizing a solution that we could build and provide to small business owners in order to, they still have to wear the marketing, the CMO, the chief marketing officer hat. No businesses or no entrepreneur is going to be able to effectively remove that hat. It's just not possible. And I'm certainly not promising, you're going to install it. It's just going to work. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. Some companies promise those kinds of results. I'm a realist. That's just not, it just doesn't work like that. If it worked like that, we'd all be skinny, rich, and happy, right? But we can at least alleviate or minimize the weight that hat has on you and your business. And the way that we do that is we had to consolidate as many sort of surfaces that you had to have access to in order to get a result. An example of that in sort of like entrepreneur terms would be, how many places or how many things do I need to purchase, log in, and connect in order to actually retrieve some sort of measurable result? The old way, you had to have your WordPress website or a Shopify site, for example. Then you had to go purchase your marketing automation tool like ActiveCampaign, and then CRM like HubSpot, and then you had to go get your e-commerce tools, and you had to get Stripe and PayPal, and you have to connect all of these things. In a lot of cases, you still have to connect a lot of those things. One of the most complicated things to connect typically was the CRM and marketing automation component. How do I get someone who subscribes on my website into, funnels and stuff where I can email them and communicate with them? And how do I make that information easily accessible? And how do I track, who was in this email or who received this email and then purchased something, et cetera, right? That's a difficult process, a difficult integration process. So concept number one, remove that integration process altogether. Our software does that by just being a WordPress plugin. I think someone estimated by 2025, half of the internet, half of all of the top 10 million websites ranked by Alexa or whoever are going to be built with WordPress. That's the current, based on growth. Currently, it's around 35%. By 2025, it should be around 50%. So just make it part of WordPress. You install it like you would any other sort of WordPress plugin, and all of a sudden your website, your CRM, and your marketing automation, your email, your list, your reports is all just automatically integrated together. So you don't even have to worry about it. You just install it and it's done. So that was point number one. Point number two is concept number two, a lot of these business owners didn't know the strategies that they had to implement in order to achieve measurable results that increased revenue or increased customer satisfaction or your net promoter score or anything like that. You don't know what you don't know. If you didn't go to, school for stuff, or you didn't take personal development training, you haven't read books, you don't know what you don't know. So part of the solution, in addition to just removing that entire integration process, was let's provide the training and templates, email templates and funnel templates and reporting templates and all these different templates that businesses can pick and choose that correspond to their niche. And, generally across all niches, there are a certain number of strategies, recovery, retention, and reviews that typically apply across the board. So those are kind of like givens. So we just automatically install those or have our customers install them. They've changed out the logos, changed out their content, and they turn them on, and great. Now you have something done really quickly that can show you based on the reporting, which is automatically generated as well. We have standardized reporting for all the businesses across the board that generally works and gives a fairly good idea of how exactly your marketing is performing. And we have measurable results immediately, right there and then. And then we back that up. Concept number three, we back that up with stellar support. You as an organization also own all of your data, so you're automatically compliant in all of the areas that matter. Canada, the GDPR laws, the new California legislation, so you don't have no privacy concerns because you own all of the data. No worries there. You can choose your sending service. You can choose how much you want to spend and all of these different things. You can choose your own hosting. You can choose all of these different things. We have now provided the ability for you to choose exactly how it is that you want to build this thing. You're not forced to use any particular providers. And then concept number four is we had to just make it more affordable. And we do that by alleviating what I've started to call, and what I totally stole from somebody else, although his name escapes me at the moment, is the success tax. People or our competitors, the people in our industry, the CRM and marketing automation providers of the world, ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, Infusionsoft, Marketo, Salesforce, et cetera, they charge their clients based on success, which is generally measured in the number of contacts that a business has on their list.
Right.
So if you go to the MailChimp's pricing page and you have 500 contacts or under 500 contacts, it's free. As soon as you as soon as you get 501, you expect to pay a minimum of $14 a month US. And then as soon as you get to 1,000, that doubles. And as soon as you get to 2,000, it doubles. And as soon as you get to 3,000, it doubles again, right? And it's exponential. This is a typical pricing model for pretty much everyone in this industry. However, because our product is, at the end of the day, a WordPress plugin and it's self-hosted, and my organization's really only expense is the cost of our developers and the cost of providing top-rated, 5-star rated support, and the cost of developing updates and new features and all these different things, right? We don't have any hosting costs. We don't have any like massive servers anywhere. We don't have any of that stuff. We are able to provide our product and our software and our service at a flat rate, no matter how big your list is. So it's equitable, and no matter how successful, quote unquote, your business is, whether you have 500 contacts or you have 50,000 contacts or even 500,000, you're going to pay the same price as everybody else, which I think is a really, really great way to do business. Basecamp, for example, does this kind of business model where it's like $99 flat. That's it, no matter how big your team is or how many projects you have going on or anything like that. And people are able to do more and they're able to accomplish more when they aren't constantly thinking about that upcoming $500 per month bill in the back of their mind because, they increase their list size by double. But, the reason why the success task I feel is not the best way to do pricing in this industry is because, there are businesses out there who aren't making any money that have 50,000 people on their list. And it's not really a true measure of how much you're actually able to afford. So those were the concepts that were important to me when designing a product that was going to allow small businesses to take this on. It was ease of integration and consolidating all of your various different features that you need in one place. So you just log into one place and you have access to it all. It was templatizing the process and making it much more easy for you to access the education, the resources that you need in order to implement strategies that would actually get measurable results. Number 3, it was being able to provide you with a platform that you had complete control over and the choices that you could make in order to extend it and implement it however you want. And number 4 was to alleviate the burden of that monthly bill that you expected to come in as your business is growing. We just removed that with our flat rate pricing.
So what I'm hearing you say is you've worked to remove some of the obstacles that small business often worries about: costs and expenses. What can they keep affording, right? They know they have to grow, but there is a disincentive with a lot of the channels in terms of growth because your profit has to grow in the same direction for you to be able to take on additional expenses, right? So that's brilliant that you've been able to do that for your clients. So tell me, Adrian, when people come to you, what's the number 1, 2, 3 things that they're looking for from you that comes to you rather than to somebody else? Why you?
People generally find us when they need to have more control over their information and over their business. If you look at MailChimp as a recent example, what's been happening is as people continue to spread disinformation in the world about politics, about COVID, about people of influence, and there's this rise of misinformation and about cannabis, for example, in the United States. That's a very hot topic still. It's legal now in Canada, but in parts of the United States, it's still very taboo. You see providers like MailChimp updating their terms of service to essentially say, if we don't like the email that you're sending for any arbitrary reason that we deem fit, we will cancel your account. You won't be able to log in. You're not going to be able to get any of your emails out. You're not going to be able to get any of your list out. You're not going to be able to get anything out. We're just going to close it, and that's that. And that's scary for a lot of people and a lot of businesses that, operate sometimes on the fringe. And they operate in these kind of like new budding industries about things that are still fairly controversial. And I'm not saying that I endorse any of those beliefs in any way, shape, or form. But even for reputable businesses that have been around for a very long time that may share certain belief systems, that is scary. And they're looking for an area and they're looking for a place where they can say, I control my data and I know that it's safe and that I'm going to have full control no matter what. And nobody's going to be able to take that away from me. And that is the kind of promise that we can offer because it's completely self-hosted. I'm not looking over your shoulder. My organization isn't looking over anybody's shoulder. You can use and implement our platform and our product in the way that you see fit. And we're not going to prevent you from doing that. And there's an increasing number of organizations around the world that are saying that the moderation and the censorship has kind of got too far. So that would be one of the first ways that people are starting to find us, is because they just want more control over their data. With MailChimp and ActiveCampaign and HubSpot and the rest, you are essentially just renting space. And when the landlord doesn't like you, they're going to evict you. We're very popular with cannabis operations at the moment. I see a lot of cannabis operations continuing to come in, and I don't imagine that it'll remain a taboo subject in the United States for much longer. As in Canada, it's already very legal, so I don't imagine it's going to be taboo much longer. But there's one example. Number two, the second reason why people find us often more and more is they're just looking to cut costs. You mentioned that profit needs to scale in order to increase demand as the list grows and all these things. And a lot of the time, businesses, we're a frugal bunch. We want to pay the least amount that we humanly can. And we offer what I believe to be fantastic service and fantastic product that is equivalent to the largest and most heavily funded of marketing automation and CRM products out there. At a much, much more affordable price for the small business. You can typically expect to pay a maximum of $480 a year for our product, where you may, for a similar service, be expecting to pay $480 a month to ActiveCampaign, Infusionsoft, or HubSpot. Well, actually, it's $2,000 a month usually for an equivalent service with HubSpot. So that speaks in and of itself. Those would be the two main reasons, I think.
I think in today's world, both of those are hugely important. I think from what I see in terms of discussion, it's that control of data that people are really searching for. And we've all had the experience on Facebook, for example, where suddenly your group gets shut down, or this gets shut down, or that ad gets shut down.
For seemingly arbitrary reasons that, a group member that you don't endorse or that you don't know is all of a sudden sending or saying things that, you don't necessarily agree with, but to Facebook, they're so big, it doesn't really matter. So in a sea of people looking for solutions to have more control and to share their message with their audience, tools like ours exist to fill that gap.
Adrian, our time is almost up and we have a few minutes left. And I just want to leave it with what are things that we haven't talked about that you think are important for people to know about in this digital marketing space? And how do they, let's start there. And then I have another question after that.
Before we started recording, you mentioned that there's a lot of hype. Yes. There's a lot of people out there. I'm bombarded by Facebook remarketing ads from I won't mention his name, but he rhymes with my Opez, and about drop shipping and Shopify and become a millionaire overnight and all of this stuff. And sometimes it's possible. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden your product went viral overnight, and you get your $10 million VC, and then you exit 5 years later and you're a billionaire. Sometimes that happens. But it is the exception rather than the rule. And I am certainly not one of those exceptions. I have, over the last 2 years, worked 70 hours a week, give or take, to build a profitable organization that is able to help several thousand business owners around the world on a daily basis and allow them to achieve the things that I promised here, which is launching their funnel, growing their list, and scale their business. And consistency, values, and determination are essentially what made that possible. So for any entrepreneur who's kind of listening to this and they're thinking to themselves, I don't really see the light at the tunnel right now. We're burning through money. It's not happening. It's not going viral. It's all of these things. So this must be a dud. Well, that's just not true. I didn't make my first dollar until like 3 months in. And then it took another year after that to surpass $10,000 in a month. And then, here we are an entire year later. And I'm happy to say that over the Black Friday period, we posted a freaking record phenomenal, 306% increase over the previous Black Friday. So that was awesome. But it takes time, and it's not an overnight thing. And as long as you consistently provide value to other people's lives, if you help, the saying goes, if you help enough people get what they want, you will eventually be able to have what you want. So for anyone listening to this, if you're going to take any value from this call, it would be that. Just stick with it. It's not overnight. Consistent contribution and consistently helping other people is going to get you sort of over that hump and into the black.
Super. On that note, be persistent, be consistent, both of those. And then there are resources available. We will have information about Adrian and his company in the show notes, so that for those of you who are listening who would like more information or would like to get in contact with Adrian, it will be available for you. So Adrian, thank you so much. I appreciate your perspective in today's marketing world because it's realistic. It's I think people need to hear what's truthful and real so they can really plan in a organized, systematic way. If you believe that tomorrow morning you're going to wake up and be suddenly this incredible, wealthy star,
it happens. Hasn't happened to me. I'm still waiting.
It happens to some. But it tends to be few, right? And it is that persistence and that consistency. So I just really appreciate your comments and your thoughts, and I look forward to getting this information out to people because I think these kinds of resources are really important for people to have. So thank you so much, Adrian, for being with us today.
It was honestly my pleasure. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to share my perspective. And I mean, the only thing that I hope that to get out of this is that someone listening to this got at least a little bit of shred of value.
Great. I'm sure they did. And for those of you who are listening, thank you for listening to Building My Legacy podcast today. Be sure to visit our website at buildtomorrow.com and our social media sites, also buildtomorrow.com. Thank you so much for being with us today.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.